Good morning, chemistry. Today we're going to do a virtual lab, and this is to drive home some of the ideas behind the states of matter and physical changes that we talked about when we were talking about physical changes last week. So before we go on with more chemistry stuff, I want you to do this virtual activity. On the left of my screen here, we have the handout where you will be writing your answers. And on the right side of the screen, we have the activity. So the first part of the handout, the predictions, you don't need the virtual lab for. You can answer these without even opening anything. And I have it broken down by score here. So you have these 6 prediction questions. And then there's 2 parts to the experiment. Part 1 is the states of matter activity. And then if you go down to part 2, we're doing phase changes. So we're going to be using states and phase changes, but we're not going to get into interactions. That's something that we're not going to deal with right now. That's for later down the road. You'll notice that for each part of the lab, there are parts where you need to do drawings. So there's a few different ways that you can do that. You'll notice here we go, I got my oxygen in a gas phase. So like for this third part, select oxygen and gas for the state of matter. Again, draw what you're observing in the simulation. So I have oxygen in a gas phase. So I can draw what these particles are doing here. There's a few different ways that we can do drawings. A, you can print this paper out and do it by hand, take photos and submit those. You can follow along the format on loose leaf and write your answers on a loose leaf. If you do that, be very, very neat and like number your questions and your sections so I know what you're drawing and what questions you're answering as you work in the loose leaf. And then you could also choose, elect to take screenshots. So on a Mac, if you hit Command Shift and 4 button together, you see the little crosshairs that pop up here? I can come over to my lab, select part of the screen, and it'll take a screenshot. On a Mac, that saves it to my desktop, and from there I can drag and drop it into the document. If you're on a Windows computer, you'll have an app called Snipping Tool, which is a very similar thing. And you can just copy and paste your image that you snip directly into this box here. If you're on a phone tablet, it's a little bit more rigmarole to take a screenshot and then crop that down to the area of the screen that you want and attach that. So I'm going to upload this handout also as a PDF. It's pretty easy to draw with your finger on a PDF when you make these edits, so if that's the route you want to take, you can do that too. So you have a lot of options with this lab. You can print the paper out and do it by hand and then submit photos. You can answer the questions on loose leaf and then take photos and submit those. Or you can download the PDF and edit the PDF with drawing annotations, or you can take screenshots, input screenshots. So you have a lot of different options of how you want to do that. The lab has pretty clear directions. There's not a lot of directions. They're very concise. They're very straightforward. So just make sure that you read the directions. When you're doing this on your own, read each question carefully. Don't just plow through trying to answer things before you've actually interacted with the virtual lab. So predictions, you don't need the lab for. Part 1, states. When you click this link here, it brings you to the home page. Yeah, it brings you to that home page. So for part 1, for part 1, use the states, and when you get over to part 2, you're going to click over on the bottom to phase changes and use this one for phase changes on part 2. And then I included some extension questions at the bottom for bonus points if you want to get into those. Alright guys, have fun, and I look forward to see your answers when we're done with this.